Welcome to Universe Unveiled, the podcast where we explore the mysteries that challenge our understanding of history and the universe, presented by the Institute for Natural Philosophy. I'm Jacqueline.
And I'm Sarah. Today we're coming at you with another UU Crew sesh. We do these sessions about once a month so that we can all get together and share what we've learned. I'm going to let our crew introduce themselves. This is our Brethren podcast, The Shaman and the Philosopher, so be sure to check that out. If you guys, Ricardo, y'all want to introduce yourselves?
So my name is Ricardo Calvario. You can find me on X at Ricardo Calvario1. We also, with Jason here, we do the Shaman and the Philosopher. And we have shows always at the same day. That is at Fridays at 7 p.m. Eastern, that we call the Roundtable Chronicles, that we do with Rick Osmond and Vincent Barrows. And we usually do on the Shaman and the Philosopher a fixed live every Sunday. So thank you for having us, and excited to hear one more presentation here at the crew.
I as well am excited for today's conversation. My name is Jason Huffman. My screen name is Shaman711 on Rumble and YouTube. Shaman711_ on X. X is a good hub. Find me there. I do all kinds of stuff, and I won't take up Jacqueline's time here. I'm excited. Come find us at the Institute of Natural Philosophy if anything you see us talk about today excites you, and if you think you've got anything like this to talk about, we want to talk to you. Jacqueline, I'm ready.
Oh boy. So, as anyone who has been following along knows, we do our UU Crew sessions with our Brethren podcast. Ricardo and Jason, thank you for being here again.
Last thing, Ricardo lied. We've been trying to keep our time slots, but we've been going live a lot recently, and we're going to do so tomorrow and odd days. So keep an eye on the Institute of Natural Philosophy's homepage or our X accounts for those live shows. They're popping up everywhere. Thank you.
So, we're here again for another UU Crew session. We try to do these monthly. Thanks to the holidays, we're pushing this one out a little bit late, but here we are. So it finally came to me. It's finally my turn to do a presentation.
Woo woo!
So I finally got it together, and today our topic is going to be psilocybin and the human experience, ancient rituals to modern science. So I'm going to go through the information from start to finish in the most concise way possible. It was very difficult for me to decide what to include and what to omit because I like to be very thorough. And there's so much great information out there. That being said, I also want to say if anyone watching has any interest in any of the links or the sources that I use to collect this information, you can definitely reach out to me. On X, I'm at Jacqueline Small. So, yeah, I kept a list in case anyone was interested. So we're going to explore this compound from its deep roots in ritual and healing to the cutting edge research happening right now and everything in between. Like I said, I did my best to avoid over explaining, but I don't know, Sarah, do I like to talk a lot? Am I long-winded?
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. I might over-explain things sometimes, but that's
you
just
fall
because
somewhere in between me and Shaman.
Okay.
I know you scared me when you said you finally got your shit together, because I honestly thought you were the one with your shit together this whole time,
See?
Jacqueline. So
I've got everyone fooled. I have everyone fooled.
I'm rethinking our prospects now.
So I did like I said, I did my best to include the information that I found both interesting and pertinent. So I hope you guys enjoy it. And I do encourage everyone to go out and look for yourself because there is so much information out there. In any case, this is my little mini presentation on psilocybin, where it started and where it is now, more or less. So this is also an open space, and because this is UU Crew, you guys feel free to where did my presentation go?
I was sharing the whole time. Did I screw you up, Jacqueline? I
You
didn't
did.
realize I was sharing. Okay, cool. I'm sorry. Look at me. I took on a role and I'm messing it up. Here we go. Screen share again.
Good thing you're not getting paid.
I know, right? Can you imagine?
Now, before we get started, I've spiked one person's water bottle with a heavy dose of
Oh
psilocybin. And by the
shit!
end of
I hope it's
this
mine.
episode, we will figure out whose it is.
I hope it's
Just
mine.
I'm
kidding.
staying away from the water bottle. I'm sticking to my coffee or my cup.
I
Okay.
snuck into all of your homes last
You got to
night.
tell the truth. So you said bottle of water.
Did you
Shit.
bring me some chicken? That's
poured-
my question.
I poured a bottle of
course
water in
not.
my Stanley cup. All right, man. All right, here we go, boss. Share screen. In case you couldn't notice, I'm handling producer duties today. Good luck to us all.
Yes, please.
There it
Now.
is.
There we go. Okay. Okay.
How's size, boss?
Yeah. Little bit. Is that good, Sarah?
It
I think
looks
that's
good to
good.
me.
Okay.
Okay.
So feel free, everyone, to jump in with your thoughts or questions and stories at any point, since that's what makes you crew so special. So I'm going to start with the basics and build from there. Jason, if you want to go to the next slide, that'd be lovely. So what is psilocybin? Let's begin at the beginning. Psilocybin is a naturally occurring psychedelic compound found in over 200 known species of mushrooms, commonly referred to as magic mushrooms or psilocybin mushrooms. Chemically, it's a tryptamine alkaloid and is structurally similar to serotonin, which is why it interacts so profoundly with our brain chemistry. The mushrooms themselves vary widely in potency and appearance. Like, there's over 200 different types. And they all look different, and they all are shaped different and have different properties. So it's pretty interesting when you get into the thick of it. So anyone who's interested, I would encourage you to go take a look.
And
The
some
most
of them that look like the psychedelic ones can kill you. So please
Yes.
find a local expert, do your homework.
Absolutely. The mushrooms themselves, the most common genus is psilocybe, which includes species like Psilocybe cubensis, which are very common in commercial cultivation. Other strains include I'm trying to include the common names here for you guys. So Liberty caps, which are very potent in the wild, wavy caps, and others, just to name a few examples. Also, the one that everyone knows about, golden teacher. These are bred or selected for different potency and effects, though the core active compounds are psilocybin and its metabolite psilocin. Many people are likely familiar, like I said, with this strain called golden teacher. That one is native to subtropical regions. It grows naturally on dung and decaying plant matter, so it grows in shit. But commercially, yes, but commercially, golden teachers are often cultivated indoors due to their relative ease of growth and very high and consistent yields. So that is the one that you will see most often at grown commercially. Not that those places are legal, but if you look online, that's what you will find. A quick question for you guys. Have any of you had a psilocybin experience? Jason?
Why do you always ask me first? Yes. I'm familiar with psilocybin. As the guy in many interviews who will talk to you about the 12 steps and AA and all that. Yes, you will also hear me talk about expertise in consciousness altering materials, which came after all of that part of my life. Yes, I have several experiences. I wouldn't even try to count them for you right now. I've harvested them in the wild. That's really how I began. And I found a local expert first, and found one that could kill a human being the very first night. In fact, a quarter of a cap could kill a human being the very first night. So we're not joking around here when we talk about approach all of this thing as you would anything that potentially involves your life.
For sure.
But also this consciousness altering is a serious business. From here on in, I hope to be talking with you laughingly and jokingly about it, but I'll lay that out as the guy with a lot of experience that, it's a serious business. It's a healing business, but a serious business.
Sarah, you?
I do, but it was a long time ago, and it was just one time someone gave me a magic mushroom, and I don't know if it was legit or not. All I know is that
Some
I
guy.
ate it, and I ate it, and It was like eating a petrified toad or something. Like, you ever seen a
Petrified
toad?
toad.
You ever
That's an
seen a
excellent way
toad
of
run over in the
describing
middle
it.
of the road? You ever seen a toad in the middle of the road and it's all dried out? It was like chewing that up, and like I
Yes.
can still feel it when I think about
That's
it.
one of the
So
first things that people, someone with their first time experience, they always bring up the taste, the smell, the consistency, because it's a little bit yucko.
I was in
petrified
Washington.
toad.
I was in
Yeah.
Washington Square Park in New York City, and this is one of my first experiences. I was like 19, and we learned that you could walk around there, and seriously, there were dudes just walking around going, acid, shrooms,
Sure.
right? And you try a bag of those, and yes, Sarah, it was a bag of petrified toads that made
Okay. So I did it right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't
You
know.
did it right.
Even those weren't quite what I've come to know them to be. Those just sort of made the birds and pigeons more interesting and, made me want to write more. But again, since I've learned recently that in nature is truly where these are intended to be worked with, right? And just to imagine doing it now in a concrete jungle, I'd look at you and laugh and say no,
Yeah.
Not for you.
Yeah, now that I've learned what it is, what it can be, what it's intended to be, particularly when one is alone, so that your consciousness and nature, however you interpret it from there, right? I like it by fire, are then alone. I use it ceremonially, right? And when I use it, guys, I'm going for a purpose. I'm going for a meeting. Is the only terms, the best terms I know to use for it, right? A shamanic meaning. Meeting, now I'll say with God, right? Because I do operate under that Christian banner. See what I mean? Being authentic, you're going to piss somebody off every time you talk about your
Every
story.
time.
Every time you can't,
That's all right.
whatever. That is my walk, right? Not yours. So when I'm having, those experiences, I'm going there for various purposes, but they're always consciously and intently for a purpose. Often, I talked about with Dave, we talk about Dave's multiverse there. I got an interview coming out with him this week, and we talked about this. And the after effects are crucial, right? An important part of the tool. But what people often do with the experience is where I'm stepping in and saying there's something that can be done with the experience that unless you're in nature, you're not really going to be capable of experimenting with or working with. Continue. Sorry, went on.
Ricardo, do they have magic mushrooms in your neck of the woods in Portugal?
Yes, we have a lot of cows, so cows produce a lot of dung, and so yes, there are a lot of mushrooms. But it's been because of our regime that ended at 75. We were very late to all of that. A very small part of the population was aware of any kind of drug, be it weed or mushrooms or whatever, or LSD. It's just it didn't. My young years passed through none of that because we just didn't knew about it, right? So we knew more about heroin and the problems it was causing in society and in main cities, but we didn't know about the other drugs. But I just, to the point that we don't always agree here at the Institute, and we don't need to agree, although I'm not exactly disagreeing with Jason. I'm just telling people that if you want to have a psychedelic experience, Jason is an experienced man. He is the shaman. So he can go and have his trips by its own. If you are starting, I seriously advise you to don't do it alone. Always do it with someone, because it will calm your anxiety that might surge when your body starts to feel different or when your mind starts to act on you.
That doesn't count as disagreeing, okay?
Okay.
Whatever.
That's what I said. That's what I said. It's not necessarily disagreeing with you. I'm just saying, and create, if you can't have the privilege that Jason has to go into the woods, create a nice setting in your home, in your comfort, where you feel safe, where you don't feel threatened. That's the ideal setting for you to try a first psychedelic experience. Just surround you of things that calm you, the music you like, the art, the paintings, whatever it is that you enjoy and gives you pleasure. Surround you of those things and let the effects come, and then you will experience in calmness and feel feeling that you are secure. Even if you start feeling something that upsets you, that might come because you have to deal with it. It's part of the experience, part of the self-learning that comes with these psychotropic experiences.
Yes, well,
Thank you, bro. Yeah, that
yeah,
wasn't
thank you for the
despairing at
advice.
all.
Definitely,
Yeah.
like, I mean, I think it goes without saying that none of this is advice or, telling or teaching anyone how to partake of psychedelics or magic mushrooms.
You read my
Definitely,
mind.
yeah, definitely do your reading. You want to do your own personal research, and this is a personal decision that is not based on advice from anyone else. Anyway, that being said, I would like to go to the next slide, Jason.
Yes, ma'am.
So, how does psilocybin work? What's the chemical action or the metabolization, and how does it actually reach our brain from ingestion? So, I broke it down for you guys in a really simple four-step plan. So, basically, it starts at ingestion. You consume psilocybin, the main compound in the mushrooms, and psilocybin itself is mostly inactive. It's like a prodrug. It needs to be converted before it can actually produce psychedelic effects. So the next step is where it does its conversion. In the gut, especially in the intestines and to some extent in the liver, enzymes and primarily alkaline phosphatase remove the phosphate group from the psilocybin. This chemical reaction quickly turns psilocybin into psilocin, which is the psychoactive compound. After that is absorption. The psilocin is then absorbed through the intestinal wall into the bloodstream. And of course, from there, it circulates and crosses the blood-brain barrier relatively easy because it's lipid soluble. This step usually takes 20 to 60 minutes after ingestion, which is why effects begin in that time frame. Brain action. Once it's in the brain, that psilocin binds mainly to serotonin 5-HT2A receptors, with some activity on the other serotonin receptors as well. This receptor activation is what causes the perceptual changes, altered thinking, emotions, and other hallmark effects of the psychedelic experience. This binding also disrupts normal filtering processes, resulting in the reduction of activity in what we call the DMN, or the brain's ego center, an increase in connectivity between regions that don't usually talk much, and the heightening of sensory processing. The default mode network, which is what the DMN is a set of interconnected brain regions, including the medial prefrontal cortex, posterior cingulate cortex, and parts of the parietal lobe. That activates during rest, mind wandering, self-reflection, and autobiographical thinking, or thoughts of I or me. It plays a central role in maintaining a coherent sense of self, personal identity, inner narrative, and the boundaries between me and the world, which is why it's often referred to as the brain's ego center. In everyday life, the DMN supports functions like recalling memories, planning the future, ruminating on past experiences, and processing social or emotional self-related information. So basically, psilocybin disrupts the normal DMN function by decreasing its internal activity and connectivity, while increasing communication with other brain networks. This temporary reduction in the DMN coherence is strongly linked to ego dissolution, the profound loss of a fixed sense of self, feelings of unity, transcendence, and expanded awareness commonly reported during intense psychedelic experiences. Other cascading experiences include altered perceptions, emotional amplification, visual patterns, time distortion, and often profound insights or mystical type experiences. So the effect of all this, basically, the onset is 20 to 40 minutes, and it peaks around 60 to 90 minutes. And it can last for 4 to 6 hours, actually. Psilocin has a half-life of about 3 hours. The compound is mostly cleared within 24 hours, though after effects, so things like integration, mood lifting, or even a little bit of fatigue can actually last for days. Body sensations often include waves of energy and sometimes nausea early on, like early in your ingestion. It makes a lot of people report that it makes them feel sick to their stomach. Yawning, pupil dilation, and a sense of electricity or warmth within your body. Mind experiences range from euphoria to awe to anxiety or even emotional release. It's not uncommon for people who take a a larger dose of psilocybin for the first time to actually find themselves crying when the experience peaks. It's very highly set and setting dependent, like Ricardo said. This variability is part of why it's so powerful. It's not a one size fits all sort of experience. It's different for everybody. I did want to quickly just mention about dosing. And like I said, this is not a recommendation in any way. It's just rather to make a mention of dosing, because I think there's a lot to be made out of it and there's a lot of information on the internet about it. So, of course, do your research. Regular dosing of psilocybin usually is, or what people refer to now as macro dosing, is like 1 to 5 grams of dried mushrooms taken very infrequently. So, like every couple of months, or, on a very long schedule. So that's what most people equate to taking mushrooms. It's not something that you're going to do all the time. Now, made more popular recently, not recently, but in the last few years, certainly a lot of people would probably have heard about microdosing, which involves taking very small very small doses of psilocybin. So if you go online, you'll see a lot of microdoses available commercially, from like 50 milligrams to 500 milligrams, which 500 milligrams is half a gram of mushrooms. So for some people, that's not really a microdose. But for people who are doing microdoses, half a gram of mushrooms is a microdose. Because the thing with mushrooms is, especially people who are on a microdosing schedule, it actually, your body actually builds a tolerance to it quite quickly. So regardless of whether or not you're doing microdosing or macrodosing, it is definitely recommended that over a period of time. So let's say, for instance, you're doing a microdosing schedule. After about a month, you probably want to take a break, because your body starts to build up a tolerance, and it's in your best interest to get the best and the most out of the experience, to actually take a break so that you can clear your system. You're going to do some clean eating and some good living and lots of exercise, just to help start the slate fresh. So I would recommend anyone who's interested in microdosing to go take a look at the different schedules that are recommended. There are several different methods to approach microdosing, and I think that if anyone's interested, it's definitely you should really go take a look at it, because there's several methods and each one is a little bit different, and you have to kind of figure out what works best for you. Yeah. So that being said, what's one physical or mental sensation that you guys who have experience with psilocybin associate with taking psilocybin? What's the sensation that stands out most to you?
You you mentioned most, right? I did make one note that the nausea often comes
Mm-hmm.
from the fibrous nature of the mushroom, especially when dried. So grinding it using a coffee
Mm-hmm.
grinder, and then making you a tea, often helps with the nausea.
Mm-hmm.
Also, the duration can be affected with lemon juice. Setting the powder or the chopped mushroom in lemon juice 10 minutes beforehand. What you're going to do then is start that process. You talked about converting it to the psilocin. So you're
A little bit faster.
get a little faster and a little stronger. It's a little stronger. It's a little faster, but also the shelf life, the half life comes
Yeah.
down. So
Yes.
you're ending faster as well. So when you're using it, like I was describing, for a meeting and for a purpose, and
Mm-hmm.
you're going in consciously, like Ricardo said, it's important. First time people, you're going to have a much different experience than somebody who's already, done their inner work and got a hold of their consciousness and is using this stuff for a particular purpose. It's a very
Mm-hmm.
different thing. So you asked me, features. The ego dissolution is the one that stood out for me. I could go on and on about experiences, but I would say that's the one that stands out, because I can describe it precisely, because I had a moment where I was in the woods and I was in a setting I was used to being alone in. The only difference this time is I had a friend who I knew was coming behind me, to join. They had their own cup of tea, made at the house, right? So I knew this, but I was in this environment that I was used to being alone in. So I find myself sitting there in the hammock and I'm having this thought oh, yeah, I'm reminding myself as the effects are beginning. I remind myself, oh yeah, they'll be here in a minute. And in that moment, I have to ask myself, who do you mean they? Who's they? Who's other? I completely lose the ability to even fathom, what other
Mhm.
means, right? Because ego just in that moment goes away. And then what effects come after that, if you're using it shamanically as a tool, we'll go into later. But yeah, that's why people like it. And then you say the after effects. It's the day after that, that's key if you're trying to use this thing as a tool to make adjustments in your life, right? That day after, you've got this dry board,
Yeah.
that's been wiped clean, and these neurons that are now being new connections in your gray matter made, and you can make choices, at that point. If you smoke cigarettes, for instance, you'll find yourself not caring for a cigarette. And
Mhm.
you'll realize at that point, I could choose to stop this,
Yeah.
and new neurons form, right? And so
Mhm.
you're able to use that as a tool. Lastly, microdosing, the only tool way the only shamanic purpose I have found for microdosing, and by that I mean maybe eating one mushroom, whatever that equates to, right? Something like that,
Mhm.
is I do a lot of exploring. I'm in the woods a lot. I like communing
Mhm.
with nature. When you're taking just enough, you start to see from a much more naturally connected perspective. Buildings, houses begin to look geometric and odd to you.
Mhm.
Deer suddenly, look at you differently because you're walking connected, right? You're understanding what you're in. Your ego is gone. And so as one who spends a lot of time in the woods, I would use that for say a week, to just lock in what I like to call the structure for my consciousness raising, right? As you said, if you go on too long, you're getting caught into using it for this thing instead of going in and going, look, I can have this experience and I
Mhm.
can experience this higher level of consciousness. I can do
Mhm.
it for a week, right? Because I plan it out, this micro thing, and then I can come back and I can go, I can hold on to that now, look, those buildings do look weird, sticking here. Look, I can walk connected with this nature. I've then used it as a tool, right? And over reliance, it's not possible.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that. I would say there's definitely a in my experience there's definitely a very good application to microdosing, especially for a person in the modern world where we all are very, very busy and we all perhaps don't have the luxury of completely stopping and taking stock of our life. Microdosing has been extremely helpful to myself. So, um, but again, this is all just general information and relating personal experiences. So it really has to do with the individual and your needs and also your expected outcomes and what you'd like to get out of it. So, yeah. Can you flip the
Half
slide for
those pe
me? Sorry, Sarah,
half
go
those
ahead.
people half those people threw up because it felt like they just ate a petrified toad.
It's so true. When you just eat those dried things, man, the nausea it's a
It's
rough one.
awful. It is
Yeah.
The
awful.
only
Yeah.
reason I kept it down is because I could feel how it was gonna be coming back up, and I knew. I just knew.
I don't want this back.
No.
Yeah.
Well, no, there's one thing that caught my attention since you said it, and before I go to that seriousness, I just want to say, Sarah, that gives a complete new definition of licking a toe, because there's people that do have psychedelic experiences by licking a toe. So
The DMT toad.
yeah, so but what caught my attention is this. You said it caused eye dilation. So, and we know that in the ancient times, most of the people that did this kind of things, even if we go for a specific example, like in South America, those that were the shamans or the priests that took this stuff, they were highly connected with astronomy. Now, as I was an amateur astronomer for about 10 years in my youth, one of the things that people wanted more was pupil dilation in order to increase or lower the level of magnitude that they can see in terms of stars. And that a slightly increase in light in your eyes can represent from 100 to 1,000 stars more that you see in the night, even without light pollution. So now I'm trying to connect the fact that they took this, they have the high dilation, so they can see much further than if they didn't. I don't know if that will be related to these astronomical practices that they do and all of this to help with these alignments and so on. I'm just wondering. I'm sorry.
It's that's brilliant, dude. I think it's a brilliant potential connection. I mean, as an experiencer, if the dose is large, then like the natives, the way they decorate the inside of their temples, as described in the chronicles, and of course we know they had baskets of these psilocybin mushrooms, right? And once you experience it, you start to realize that the visions will take over, and you start to see things connecting things in the sky, right? So you sort of would lose your observational efforts, but afterwards, right, in the next phase, yeah, dude, I would imagine that would be a great aid if your goal was to get more detailed observation of the sky. Brilliant.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that before. Jason, your duty.
This is the next one, and then we started talking. I'm sorry, did we?
Oh, you did put it up. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Okay, so the next slide is ancient use of psilocybin. So we're going to take it back thousands of years here. Psilocybin mushrooms have been used ritually for millennia, especially in Mesoamerica. I want to make a little side note here that all of the information that I found, we don't have time to include. So this is a very brief overview just to give people a foundation. So the Aztecs called mushrooms the flesh of the gods and used them in religious ceremonies to commune with deities, heal themselves and divine the future, and initiate warriors or priests. In the Florentine Codex, specifically Book 11, Chapter 7, compiled by, and I'm going to butcher this poor fellow's name, but I'll do my best, Bernardino de Sahagún. In the mid-16th century, the Aztec sacred mushrooms known as flesh of the gods are described as small, round-headed fungi with long stems that grow in grassy plains or desert fields. A direct translated excerpt from the text states, "It's called mushroom of the gods. It grows in the grassy desert plains. Its head is small and round, and it has a long stem. It makes one see visions. It makes one frightened. It makes one lose one's senses." These mushrooms were ingested ritually, often in small quantities, say perhaps 2 at a time, sometimes with honey or chocolate, during ceremonies, feasts, or by nobles and healers for divination, spiritual communication, healing, and prophetic insights, inducing visions, laughter, weeping, fear, or altered states. Sahagún, reviewing them through a colonial Christian lens, condemned their use as idolatrous and intoxicating, associating the effects with demonic influence. Though the indigenous accounts highlight their sacred and theogenic role in pre-Hispanic Mesoamerican culture, these fungi are now recognized as psilocybin-containing species. In Oaxaca, again, I'm the worst with name pronunciation. Oaxaca. Names of people, names of places. I know it, and then it leaves my brain. In Oaxaca, Mexico, the modern-day Mazatec people still use them shamanically, guided by curanderas like the well-known Maria Sabina, who called them Niños Santos, or holy children. Maria Sabina, who was born in 1894 and died in 1985, was a renowned Mazatec sabia, or wise woman, and a traditional healer from the Sierra Mazateca region of Oaxaca, Mexico. She is best known for her lifelong practice of conducting baladas, which are sacred nighttime healing ceremonies that use psilocybin mushrooms. These rituals, guided by chants, prayers, and her visionary poetry, were performed to diagnose illnesses, heal physical and spiritual ailments, and provide guidance, all within an indigenous spiritual framework. Sabina began using the mushrooms as a child and reportedly as young as 7, and she became a respected shaman in her community, viewing the mushrooms as divine messengers that allowed her to communicate with spirits and access healing knowledge. In the 1950s, she gained international fame after a Western mycologist, notably R. Gordon Wasson, visited her in 1955. He participated in one of her late-night baladas and published accounts in Life magazine in 1957. This brought global attention to psilocybin mushrooms and helped spark the 1960s psychedelic movement, with visitors like celebrities, hippies, and seekers flooding her region of Oaxaca, Mexico, often disrupting her life and the community traditions that they held there. Though she never learned to read or write, her improvised chants during ceremonies were later transcribed and translated, earning her recognition as one of Mexico's greatest poets for the profound mystical and rhythmic language. Sabina emphasized that the mushrooms were sacred medicine for healing, not recreation, and she later expressed regret over the commercialization and misuse that followed all the publicity after that article was published in Life magazine. She remains an iconic figure in psychedelic history, indigenous healing, and the broader story of how ancient practices influence modern psychedelic culture. So, I love that story of her, and I find it so funny that something that was literally a continuation for thousands of years just suddenly became rediscovered in the 1950s. So it's like an unbroken chain of tradition over thousands of years. And yeah, the Western world just decided one day, oh, look at that.
Oh, that's new. Huh? Let's go play with it. Yeah.
Yes. So both Sarah and Jason, from your spiritual perspectives, what do you think that those ancient rituals were accessing that modern people are seeking? Like, what were they doing that we're missing?
Wow. Okay. So look, I think in her life story, I don't know, starting so early, wow. I know, shaman's gonna have trials, right? It's all about finding that medicine yourself, right? And
Hmm.
what I was gonna say is when using this thing about a tool and what you could probably kind of see Western culture doing there, getting all sort of fanatic about it, right? Is that there's the first part that can be whatever, intense, visionary, whatever it's going to be. But if you're engaged with it, call it shamanically, call it intentionally and consciously as a tool, you're going to find that just like any spiritual work in life, there are levels often marked by checkpoints or tests or things that must be done to oneself before proceeding. And I think often especially when I see modern day discourse, people reference these things as self-help, and they are indeed, right? And that's why Ricardo had to caution and make sure, as he said, setting is key, because your first time, you're going to start getting shown things, channeled things, whatever you want to call it, about you, right? Honest things about your life. And you're going to need to confront those, right? Now, that is your healing aspect, right? Now, what happens if I continue on with it as a tool? I'm going to find now that these teachings and these showings are no longer about me. Once I have done the work, once I have gone inside and addressed what these teachers, as she called him, right, this plant, this part of the earth was
Hmm.
allowing me to see, I'll put it that way, right, about myself. Once I address that and I continue to engage with this tool, I then find that there is much more, right? That it is like I hear people say about DMT, that it's like they're testing it at universities going, it's a pure channel to the other side, right? Well, I think with any native population, and why they would have had it, you go to the museum in Moundville and they show you baskets, of these mushrooms or what apparently have been found, right? In these temples, right? It was for this, right?
Hmm.
Okay. Well, they weren't just constantly going, let's heal and let's move on. What were they doing? They were getting you through that healing, and then they were keeping going. They're going,
Hmm.
well, what else is here? What can you tell me about this world, about humanity, about my place in it, right? Continuing
Hmm.
on with this process. Did that answer your question? Because I think
It
that's what
did.
that's
I
what they'd
was
have been on about.
Yeah, I was looking for your specific input in that regard. Just I think that my intention was to draw put a little mark on the fact that traditionally the use of psilocybin has been used as in a very deeply rooted spiritual practice.
Right.
And in the modern day, like, we are missing part of that. It's used for recreation, it's
Yep.
looked at as a drug that is as bad as some other street drugs that we could name here.
Yeah.
And to me, it's completely unrelated one to the other. And what we're missing is the spiritual practice, the spiritual guidance that comes with the use of a
That's it.
of a tool like this.
That's it.
So
And
yeah.
I hear everybody bragging on DMT about opening you up to spiritual realities. Listen,
Hmm.
the other thing about I don't get it as a party drug, right? I've had
Hmm.
experiences where other people were around, I knew they'd be around, we're up on a mountain somewhere, right? On a vacation. And even then I was like, no, this
Yeah.
does not work. This is not what I'm using this thing for, right?
Right.
It's not very enjoyable. I'm sorry, I got off my point there, but yeah, that sticks for me.
Yeah.
I would even argue that our modern addiction epidemic is mostly comprised of people who are missing that, and they know that something's missing and they're trying to get back to it. And a lot
Yeah.
of these drugs, that's what they do, is they tear down the walls. And I mean, I'm not advocating drug use by any
No,
means,
no.
but I mean, you don't seek that out because everything's fine. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right. And you brought me back to my point, Sarah, right? It's that when you're using these things, right? And it shows you if you use them a couple of times and if you're doing it just for you to see what it shows you about reality, right? I see the value that so many people tout in DMT. I see my consciousness being opened up to reality that exists. Our brain and our senses, we only see so many wavelengths. We only get so much, right? So when I have that experience, I see that what's being represented on my field of vision and in my brain is the malleability of reality. Therefore, the spiritual realities which we cannot normally perceive. So, what does
Hmm.
that do for me in my normal everyday?
Yeah.
That lets me walk around going, no, it's real. I've seen you. I've talked to you. You're real and you're here all the time, right? That can be obtained. And I think when you see cultures that are holding this thing ceremoniously, that's what they're getting out of it. You're getting it and you're coming back to your world. That's why in Greece, when they're talking about the ancient Grecians would go underground to the take the acid, right? I forget the name of it now, the proper name of it, and they do it once, and they'd all come out, and their whole life image was changed, But whatever. That's what I see in these cultures.
Yeah, it's like the difference, like Sarah, you were saying people who are seeking something, and so they're taking all these like very dangerous chemical drugs, and those drugs do tear down a wall and bring them to a place outside of reality. But then what happens after that is they're left with this hole. Like there's nothing given back to fill that hole. There's no new pathway except for it's like this it becomes circular. So instead of going inside of themselves and then moving forward, they're caught in this loop
Yep.
because it doesn't never fulfills anything for them. It never gives them any insight. It takes from them continuously. And in the case of psychedelics and specifically psilocybin, I don't think that that's the case at all. It doesn't take anything of value away from you. It just reveals, I think, in my experience.
That's how people feel about marijuana largely
Mhm.
too, is it's kind of in its own club. And I would pair it with shrooms. They're in a club together. Um, but then again, like people aren't doing shrooms and having it rot their teeth out of their head and going outside and finding them leaned over on the sidewalk for 3 days in the same position. Like, you know what I mean? It's not ruining people's lives. It's benefiting for the most part. And I think that's what matters about it. Does it help or does it hurt? If it helps, have fun.
Well, I would say that because we had this long, long hiatus between living in small communities that then gather together and have these ceremonies where the mushrooms are in the honey, and you just take your portion and take it. And it's like creating a resonance between everybody, and the experience becomes communal instead of being individual. It breaks the barriers between individuals in the community itself, something that probably wouldn't be advisable today. And that was lost. So I would say that exactly as then, that not everybody was under the influence all the time, because not everybody could do that. And those that did it at the cost of being separated from the society and being like the shaman and being the wise one that doesn't live among the society, because probably he's too open, too sensitive to be among all of those people. These people were tested as youngsters. Those that could deal with it were selected. Those that didn't return to society as normal. So relating this to today, I'm just saying that although this is extremely beneficial to the human being, it doesn't mean that all of us could deal. There are some people that will always have a bad experience no matter what kind of psychotropic they take. It will always be. The exception, I would say, perhaps would be ayahuasca, because it doesn't leave you with any chance. It just first depletes your body of everything you have inside, and then fills you up with things you didn't know existed. But
you haven't taken a strong enough dose of psilocybin.
yeah, but it's. I think it's different at some point, because every single drug has its own characteristics and influences, right?
Yeah.
And I think we are not saying here that everybody should go and take a dose. In fact, you should, but you should see if it is for you or not. It's like cannabis is not for everybody. There's people that just don't enjoy it, right? So I think nature made a variety so big that we can all today find whatever works for us, even in different strands of mushrooms. Because I think there is strands of mushrooms. If you have experience with that strand, it could be a bad experience. You don't necessarily need to give up. If you have the courage, try another type of strand and see if that works better for you, because our physiology is different for every single one of us. So what I mean is, I don't see any problem in doing it, as you were saying, like in a forest, but you need to have a very specific group of people, because as in a play that I'm very fond of from Yasmina Reza, at certain points the guy says people today they take drugs to drug themselves.
Right.
It's not to have any experience, is just to leave reality behind for a certain period of time. Sometimes it takes us deeper into their reality and it's worse, and other times they make them forget, oh, that's cool, let's take it again. And not only that, I when I was between my 16 and 25, it still exists today, but at the time in Portugal it was very, very active. There is the raves. I don't know if you call it that here. So these people take mushrooms, take LSD, and then go into a place where they'll hear punts, punts, punts constantly, and lights flashing all over the place, which I don't think, and we saw, it's incredible how resilient the human mind is, because only a few got irreversibly crazy. So humans are very resilient. But there were cases where they didn't come back because it's too much. You are opening your body and then you are shocking it with every kind of extrasensory input that you can put in, and it's just too much. The brain cannot cope. So again, the setting is essential to any of these experiences.
Yeah, you want to be careful where you are when the floor starts to breathe. You really do.
Indeed. For sure. That's definitely a good point. Jason, if you wouldn't mind taking us to
Yes,
the
ma'am.
next slide. So the next slide basically is just to give some examples of the archaeological evidence. To be fair, there are not a lot of definitive proofs of historical use of psilocybin, although there are a few that are worth mentioning. The evidence is suggested, but very limited. Prehistoric rock art in Spain and Algeria show mushroom-like figures, possibly 6,000 to 9,000 years old, hinting at very early ritual use. In Mesoamerica, ceramic mushroom stones from Guatemala and Mexico date to about 500 to 900 BCE and 500 BCE to 900 CE, and they were likely ritual objects. The modern rediscovery did come in the 1950s, like I said, when our Gordon Wasson traveled to Oaxaca, Mexico, and participated in that ceremony with Maria Sabina. His 1957 Life magazine article, Seeking the Magic Mushroom, introduced psilocybin to the West, and it sparked scientific and cultural interest. Anthropological studies from Wasson, Richard Evans Schultz, and later researchers documented living traditions showing psilocybin as a sacrament for healing and spiritual connection. These studies bridged ancient practice with modern curiosity and raised questions about cultural appropriation that we still grapple with today. And that's that. The next slide, please. So the modern rediscovery, which I very particularly chose the wording on that, the rediscovery of psilocybin. The modern story starts in the 1950s with the article that was written in Life magazine. And also I added in here Aldous Huxley's writings on psychedelics. Aldous Huxley wrote about psilocybin mainly in his letter in a collection of letters that he wrote later, essays, and the posthumous collection Moksha: Writings on Psychedelics and the Visionary Experience. Rather than in a dedicated book, his famous The Doors of Perception from 1954 focused on mescaline. He experimented with psilocybin in the late 50s and early 60s, describing it as a powerful psychedelic akin to mescaline and LSD that could temporarily disable the brain's reducing valve, granting access to mystical, visionary, and transcendent states. In Moksha and his correspondence, he highlighted its value for spiritual insight, ego dissolution, therapeutic potential, and exploring higher consciousness exploring higher consciousness. Huxley advocated careful, supervised use in controlled settings, like Ricardo mentioned, for intellectual or mystical purposes, expressed interest in its pharmaceutical forms, and warned against casual recreation, which was basically what was happening when he was writing about that in the 60s. His thoughtful writings helped form psilocybin as a serious tool for understanding the mind, influencing the early psychedelic movement and also influencing figures like Timothy Leary. The 1960s saw an explosion. Timothy Leary, Richard Alpert, otherwise known as Ram Dass, and the counterculture embraced psilocybin for consciousness expansion, leading to widespread recreational use. A little note about Timothy Leary. He was born in 1920, died in 1996. He was an American psychologist, author, and iconic figure in the 1960s counterculture, best known as a leading advocate for psychedelic drugs. After earning his PhD in psychology, he joined Harvard in 1959 and co-led the Harvard Psilocybin Project, which ran from 1960 to 1963. One of the earliest academic studies administering synthetic psilocybin to explore its effects on consciousness, personality, creativity, and spirituality. His experiments, including the Concord Prison Project and influences on the Good Friday experiment, demonstrated psilocybin's potential to induce profound mystical experiences, reduce ego boundaries, and support therapeutic change. Leary's writings, such as The Psychedelic Experience from 1964, framed psilocybin to give spiritual insight and personal transformation, helping establish modern concepts of set, setting, and consciousness expansion. So again, we're hearing the set and setting, like Ricardo mentioned to us. Though his shift to public advocacy and the slogan, does anyone know his slogan?
Tune in, turn on, drop out.
Yes. It fueled backlash and contributed to psychedelic prohibition.
He was also CIA, Just saying, look into it. Allegedly.
Allegedly. It popularized psilocybin widely. Today, Leary is credited with laying foundational ideas that inform the current renaissance in psilocybin research for mental health and therapy. By the early 1970s, backlash led to Schedule I classification in the US and global prohibition, halting research basically for decades. Public perception swung wildly from mystical wonder to this is a dangerous drug. And that resulted in psilocybin basically gaining all of the stigma. If you were a child born in the 80s, like I was, and you were constantly told in school that magic mushrooms would make you crazy. So that's where all of that basically began. Jason, do you want to go to slide 7, please?
Yes, ma'am. Well, that and the pharmaceuticals' interest in teaching us that it would make us go crazy because
for
they
sure.
were making money on daily pills. And why have a medicine that pops out of cow poop that could fix everything for a year? We want to sell them
Right?
something every day, guys.
Right.
It's
So you
like the
can
psilocybin version of reefer madness.
absolutely. It was all they were all kind of like that was happening at the same time, right?
Yeah.
Because everyone was tuning in and dropping out. So they, the establishment was having just like in a frenzy.
They ran a campaign about
They
it.
sure
basically,
did. They sure did.
Like they do.
Sarah, can you believe we went from reefer madness to yesterday? I swear, legitimate news article. Older people who had been regular THC consumers performed higher on cognitive tests. I mean, everything from correct brain cholesterol to functioning. In other words, you age smarter and better.
What?
You know, how did we go from reefer madness to that reality is, I think, a beautiful thing. I'm not a proponent, of anything for people, but I am certainly against control of what an adult can do with their consciousness. That's our sovereign, sacred, God-given realm, and
Preach.
however you interpret it. If you say the kingdom is within, or if you go within and find yourself, or however you interpret it, what's inside is yours, and what you do with it is yours. And when people start trying to tell you what to do with it, that's not, I don't know, that's not of God, is the way I say it. It just kind of makes me mad, really.
These studies, like the one you just mentioned, the problem is just exactly when I was researching about the moon, there were 2 or 3 studies saying that the full moon had this influence in the body. It creates better regulation inside, and it gives you more stamina and so on. They tested in young athletes and so on. But after one comes out saying all this, they put out 2 or 3 saying, "Oh, we tested and we find absolutely nothing." And in the case of cannabis, you see that test coming out and saying that has that effects. But if you go and look, there is 5 saying that it causes memory loss and this and that, and supposedly they are all using the same methods to get
You always
look
to who paid for the test. Okay, if you're going to talk about science in any test, always look who paid for it. My only legitimate point is, since our government declassified and put THC into classified 1, this, you're not in the United States, right? So here in the U.S., once he made it okay to study the effects, instantly, all of this science that has existed for years, they're able to now publish the studies, right? So they publish it, and you can find them, and you just day after day after day of positive effects of this thing, this plant that comes up naturally out of the ground, that, as Sarah started us on, just a scant 70 years ago, I was told by my government made me crazy.
Yeah, but they can't synthesize it. And if they can't synthesize it, they can't make money out of it.
Right.
If it is natural and you can't synthesize it in a chemical formula that you can patent and they say it's only yours and sell it, you can't make money out of it, right? And that's the problem. Because if they could synthesize these substances, then they would make money from them. Then they will say, this is a wonderful thing. Just please take it, right? So the problem is they can't make money out of it. They're trying secondary things like doing creams from cannabis and including small doses of psilocybin in some of medicaments and so on and so forth, but they cannot synthesize. They have to be something else in there. 95% of it has to be something else in order for them to be making money with it. And that's the problem.
Well, they need it to be processed in some way. There needs to be some process after the fact so that they can package it, slap a brand on it, and tax it and all this other fun stuff that's bad for us and great for them.
Right, exactly.
Pretty much. Pretty much. And you'll see that I'm actually gonna bring up the way the media shifts in these situations. So actually, Jason, you can go to the next slide. So actually, sorry. Scratch that. Go back.
Reverse.
reverse.
I was gonna say I had it, but I was trusting you. I was being a good little button clicker.
Okay, so recent ideas about psilocybin. So in the 2010s, this brought a resurgence, and research began exploding during this time. Places like Johns Hopkins, Imperial College, and NYU have all restarted rigorous trials showing safety and efficacy. The key findings have been a single high dose with psychotherapy can produce large, sustained reductions in depression, anxiety, existential distress, and sometimes these results are lasting for months or even years. Studies show psilocybin resets the brain networks, increasing connectivity, and reduces default mode network activity linked to the ego and rumination, like we talked about earlier. That default mode network everyone's needs a little bit of work. Other areas like addiction, alcohol and tobacco in particular, are the areas that get the most testing. Also PTSD, OCD, cluster headaches, and end-of-life anxiety. And the results are promising, often outperforming standard treatments in small trials. And the media has also shifted towards healing stories and public support. Polls now show 60 to 80% of the population actually approve for medical use in many places. More people are openly sharing their experiences and their stories of successful healing or just having an experience which has helped them become a better version of themselves. Right here, I'd like to mention someone who's been very important in reshaping these ideas that society at large has about psilocybin, and that is Paul Stamets. Paul Stamets is a leading mycologist and an author and has been a major advocate for psilocybin's therapeutic potential for decades. Like, this is literally the man's life. He promotes its benefits for treating depression, anxiety, PTSD, addiction, and enhancing neuroplasticity, often through microdosing and his Stamets stack, which is psilocybin mixed with lion's mane and niacin. And you'll have to go look it up, but there is a prescribed microdosing schedule associated with that Stamets stack. Through books, TED Talks, Joe Rogan appearances, and the fantastic fungi documentary and his company, Mesoamerica, he has helped destigmatize and popularize psilocybin. Stamets bridges science, indigenous wisdom, and activism, pushing for responsible use, decriminalization, and more research on natural mushrooms. So how specifically think about I think to keep it more concise, think about the last 5 years and how have you seen the perception change? Like, think 5 years ago on X, you would not have seen anyone posting about psilocybin. And if you did, it was like a one-off and it would be from like a really obscure account. But today, you can find people with very large social followings that are, quoting studies, posting links to medical research that's happening, advocation. So, like, in the last 5 years, I think we can agree that there has been a huge shift in societal perception. And just the fact that we're sitting here talking about it now, like 5 years ago, it's not necessarily something that would have been a topic of discussion. What do you guys think?
Information age.
The information age, girl, you got it.
22 veterans a day
Yeah.
self-delete. And
That's
I've
it.
seen that in the news, and I keep seeing that story over and over and over again, and it's old news at this point. And
Yeah.
that's beautiful. I mean, in its own way.
Sarah, it reminds me of in AA, there used to be, you'd run into speakers that they'd always be angry at meetings. They'd always be fired fucking up. And the reason was because their shtick, that's the negative word, but their angle was right, was you're here and you found out this saved your life. How many people out there right now are dying, right? Get out there and find some of them, right? And show them what helped you, right? Okay, I feel just as strongly as what Sarah said about our military, about anybody that's suffering from PTSD. My personal experience, right? I had a rough fucking go of it. My personal experience taught me that this tool could do what they've got people in my life on every day, every single day, right? I found that this could do it like that with all the proper shit. You know, we don't have to disclaimer it every time with everything we've already said and you doing the work, but this can do that. It can heal you. It can keep people alive, right? Not only that, but help give them that restart we're all so desperately seeking. I like the word you said, default mode, right? Mm-hmm. To get out of that, to break that, and to move forward with your time here on Earth is a sacred thing. And I feel about like those dudes in AA, you know, about this stuff. That why are we keeping it a secret, y'all? So I'm happy to see it, to answer your question.
Me too. And you can go to the next slide. Finally. So this portion of the presentation is going to talk about the legal status, and it is what it is. Now, this is something that has changed for some places, and some places were on the verge of change, but I only included definitives for this. So the legal status of psilocybin, it is shifting fast, actually. In the US, it's federally Scheduled 1, but decriminalized in cities like Denver, Oakland, Seattle, and Detroit. In Oregon in 2020 and Colorado in 2022, legalized supervised therapeutic use with licensed treatment centers opened up. In Canada, it is Schedule 3 federally. However, in Canada, we live in a very gray area, if you will. Health Canada has granted hundreds of exemptions since 2022 for end-of-life and therapy, which is leading a quiet medical pathway. And this is something that I was talking about the other day with Ricardo. Anytime that you don't make a definitive ruling on something, you leave an open door for a very gray area. So you can go online in Canada and purchase psilocybin mushrooms, microdose, dried mushroom or powdered, you name it. And it's one of those things that is not legal, but it's available. So I feel that that happening also leans into my idea of the legal status is shifting quickly, because there is a need, a want, a demand, an interest from society at large. People are changing their minds. And so, like we often see, especially like we have like the perfect subset of data to compare it to with the legalization of marijuana in many places all over the world, Canada and the US. In Canada, marijuana is legal, but it took some time to get us there. And in lots of places in the United States, it is available and it's legal, but it took some time to get y'all there. So I feel that the same thing is happening with the case of psilocybin, is that as the society shifts its opinions and more professionals and the experts do the due diligence to this compound, and the testing results become available, then the law will eventually follow. Elsewhere in the world, Jamaica is fully legal and has recently become widely recognized as a retreat industry hub, with dozens of retreats offering guided, therapeutic, or spiritual experiences using psilocybin for purposes like mental health support, personal growth, ego dissolution, and mystical insights, which I did not know that. So when I found that very interesting, that they basically have like a whole industry cropping up, because Jamaica is already a vacation destination. So they have a tourism industry cropping up in a place where psilocybin is legal and available, and they are catering to people who would like to travel to Jamaica and have a psilocybin experience. So that's kind of cool. Netherlands allows some forms. Specifically noted were truffles. The Netherlands is another place with lots of gray area. Having been there myself, you can get psilocybin in many forms, but only one of them is technically legal. Portugal, I will mention because they've decriminalized all drugs, which means that it's, well, we'll let Ricardo tell you.
Well, it looks beautiful on paper. It doesn't actually work that well in reality, which means that it creates a conundrum. That is, you can consume the drugs, right? And you can buy them, but you cannot sell them, which is weird because how can you buy them if you cannot sell them? So even a small dose cannot be sold, but you can hold, for instance, in cannabis, you can hold that to 4.9 grams with you without being arrested, right? But they will put you to counseling. So if you only have a smoke in you, it is just irrelevant. If you find with mushrooms, most of the policemen probably won't know what it is, but would consider it to be a serious matter. And after evaluation, then we determine that it was nothing and can actually go home. So you can do it if you are lucky enough to do your commutes where you go and get these things, right? And you go and come back home and no one will tell you anything. You can even smoke cannabis in the streets. No one will tell anything. Uh, but you can't buy it. So you can consume it, but you can't buy it. So it's good in paper, but in reality, it creates stress and anxiety to every single consumer when they're trying to get these things. And if you decide to go online and send something like a pack of mushrooms coming from afar, they have a high-tech system in the post office that detects more than 70% of those incomes. So they don't prosecute you, but it never gets home. You just get something say your package was kept. So, well, what can I say?
So that is a perfect example of what I was mentioning, how without clear definitive laws, it creates a gray area. And where there's demand, people are going to partake. So it adds pressure on the legal system. The like right down to the the police in the streets are like, what do we do with these people? We find them when they have a couple of grams of mushrooms or in their pocket. Are what do we do with these people? So there needs to be a quick catch up and more clarification in the law, because where people are demanding something and where the science is now basically saying, like, this is not a bad thing. It has a practical application and it has a healing application. So people are going to start seeking it out. And I mean, social media, I mean, my algorithm's probably pretty, my algorithm's probably tuned in too, but I do see a lot of content about psilocybin and other psychedelic drugs, and specifically all of the scientific work that's being done in terms of research right now. Yes, Ricardo.
I just want to add that exactly as we were talking previously about the pharmaceutical industry that wants to make money from these things, right? And in the terms of the drugs and in the countries like in Portugal, I don't think the problem is actually the pharmaceutical area, it's the drug trafficking area, because the people that sell these things in bulk might just be somewhat inside the governmental structure of the country itself. So everybody is making money, and if it is completely legalized, we know for a fact that it would cure, by the number of consumers, it would cure probably the deficit in 70% in the first year, right? So it would be of the interest of the government, and some parties have presented these studies. It would be of the interest of the government to actually decriminalize certain drugs like cannabis, that one of the party has been trying. In fact, it was because of it that it managed to get some people into the assembly, because young people were voting in mass. In fact, their publicity were filters for making a cannabis cigar. You just cut the things. That's how they gained their place in the first elections that they participated. But there is this interest, and they are making money by putting this illegally into the country, because only them are making that money, right? So until that is solved, until that corruption disappears, it's not just the pharmaceutical industry that stops these things from coming. It's also the drug trafficking itself.
I mean, I think that we could go pretty deep into the web of, for lack of a better word, fuckery that is involved in the legal status of illicit drugs, what they deem illicit drugs. I know because Canada, I saw it happen here when we got legalization in 2019. October 2019 was when marijuana became legal in Canada. And overnight, the government was prepared and all the stores like popped up on every single corner. So there's definitely, it is largely less about legislation and more about how to reallocate all of the money which is to be made and who is going to get, and making sure that everyone that is involved gets their piece of the pie. So that's I think that's probably a lot of the bureaucracy that's involved, right? And one thing I did forget to mention, actually, before we talked about Portugal, is that Australia actually approved for medical use of psilocybin in 2023. And Jason, you can go to the next slide, which is just a continuation talking about the legal status.
It's a brilliant picture, though.
It is a cool picture. I quite like the visuals I included in this presentation. So the larger takeaway I want for you guys to remember is that societal perception has flipped dramatically, and it's changing very, very quickly. So from dangerous hippie drug in the 1970s to promising medicine today. So we're hearing the narrative change. Media coverage now focuses on science and healing stories. Like I said, the public support for medical psilocybin is very strong and often polled between 60 and 80%. Still, recreational stigma lingers, and in some ways, I think it should. The access remains unequal. Legal pathways are expensive and very limited to date. So in terms of what I said, that recreational stigma lingers, is that I think that we also at this time have a deficit in education, not just to professionals who will potentially deliver this therapeutic treatment, and that ranges from every walk of professional background. So many multidisciplinary people would be involved in delivering care to potential patients who are suffering from things that can benefit from psilocybin. So it really is going to take a little bit of time to teach these people how to deliver that care. But the information also needs to be adequately delivered to the general and broader public. So we have to erase that stigma that it's a hippie drug, and teach people that it's not meant to be taken at parties and in situations where you're just you just want to get messed up. You know what I mean? People have done that and also walked away having had good experiences. But like Ricardo mentioned in the beginning, it is really setting dependent. And I think that it's best approached when you have a good solid foundation of information and on how to approach the experience you're about to have. So there is we do have like a bit of a detriment there when it comes to the education that needs to be given to everyone. But every day we're combating that by researchers, publishing the information that they found in their papers and in all their trials, and governments actually listening. I feel like the work is happening, but we just got a little farther to go. So Jason, you can actually go to slide 10. So advancements in trials. Researchers are increasingly interested in its potential therapeutic benefits, like we've been saying. Recent studies suggest that psilocybin can promote neuroplasticity, which is the brain's ability to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections. And Jason brought this up. This ability may help pave the way for improved mental health outcomes, offering hope to those who have not found relief through traditional treatments. As research continues, scientists aim to better understand the compound's effects and how it can be safely and effectively integrated into mental health care. The trials are advancing quickly. Some examples of recent published findings include at Johns Hopkins, a single dose reduced depression symptoms for up to a year in many patients in the trial. Imperial College says psilocybin reset brain networks in treatment-resistant depression. NYU had strong results for end-of-life anxiety and also alcohol addiction. Other areas with advancing and rigorous ongoing research include PTSD, OCD, cluster headaches, smoking cessation, and even significantly, which we covered on the UU News, slower cellular aging. Many studies pair psilocybin with therapy, and this is the important aspect to remember with regards to complicated mental health situations. The drug opens the door, but the therapy helps integrate the experience. However, I remain on the side of tremendous optimism because the results are consistently showing rapid, lasting benefits, sometimes after only one session. And you can go to the next slide. Recent conclusions are overwhelmingly positive. High safety in controlled settings, significant and sustained benefits for depression, anxiety, and addiction, and more, like we've said over and over. I think it's important to note here that all reports show that side effects are mild and short-lived if the therapy is given in a controlled setting. Basically nothing when compared with traditional chemical pharmacological counterparts. Experts say the future is very promising. Phase 3 trials are underway, and the regulatory approval for therapeutic use could come in as little as 5 to 10 years in multiple countries. And I know that 5 to 10 years sounds like a long time, but when you think about how far we've come only in the last 5 years, and considering that we're talking about many different countries, as is the case often, North America leads the charge in many of these sort of situations. However, challenges still remain. Access, training therapists, avoiding commercialization pitfalls, which is just a nice way for me to wrap all that up, and providing adequate education to both professionals and patients. But the momentum is very strong. Science is finally being allowed to catch up to what indigenous cultures have known for a millennia, that the magic of the mushrooms is ours to unlock if we understand their mechanism. And so you can go to the last slide.
Was this it? The future of psilocybin?
The next one.
Oh, the next one.
Yeah. To sum up, psilocybin has ancient roots as a sacred medicine and a ritual tool, and was rediscovered by us in the mid-20th century, faced prohibition, and is now reemerging as a powerful therapeutic agent. From shamanic healing to modern clinical trials, it's showing promise for mental health and personal growth, and raising big questions about consciousness, culture, and healing. And so I thank you all for listening to my little presentation about the magic mushrooms, for which I have so much love, and I really appreciate all the contributions that you made. Did anyone have anything they want to bring up?
I want to say something. First of all,
Oh, thank you.
it was wonderful. Very well. The research very well presented. Thank you, Jacqueline, for that. And this got me some thoughts. Like, we talked about the problems brought by the pharmaceutical industry. We talked about the problems brought by the trafficking industry, but we didn't talk about the problems of the human problem. And that is, we see the pharmaceutical research leading us into a future of medicine, right? It's the top tier of how to heal the human body in its many maladies of body and mind. However, it really doesn't make sense that why everybody that feels sick don't start with the things that work for thousands of years instead of going immediately to the things that have been presented in the last 40. So, and the reason for that is the human problem. It's the charlatan. It's the minorities. It's the impact of these minorities, be it them in whatever, like, I don't manage because I don't want to bring this to his show, but it's this minorities and the
The
greed of,
lowest common denominator is how we say it.
it's this small, greedy individual persons that in certain areas, by saying that they are healers and using holistic things just to take money from people, moved people away from the holistic treatments into the chemical treatments of modern pharmacology. However, we are back in a time and day where we can actually do research for ourselves and do exactly what was being done, or actually enter into contact with good and honest people that actually know what they're doing. And it's, if they don't ask you money, that's a good sign, because they're not in for the money.
It's true.
So
there's a lot of good and honest people out there. You just got to find them.
absolutely. So it's all of these three factors that led us into this narrow-minded vision that most of society has. Even those that take these drugs have that closed-minded vision. That
Don't forget the American industrialist. Who was it? Because the petroleum guys, once they found out petroleum, they wanted to do everything by petroleum. You know what? Most of your medicine, your modern medicine, is a derivative of is fucking petroleum. So we have a pharmacological industry based on petroleum, because the industrialists were like, hey, it's just like corn syrup. We've got too much of the shit. What can we do with it? Well, let's get them hooked on it.
Sure. And so what I'm trying to say here is, whatever is the problem that someone has, I recommend that first you look into the holistic treatments. And then if it doesn't work in a short scale of time, then you progress and you go into actual pharmaceutical medicine, and not the other way around. Because what most people do, especially in serious diseases, they throw themselves into the pharmacological means of treatment, and when they fail and the problems are so already beyond what can easily be cured, they think, okay, this is failed. Now I'm going to the herbacologist. Now I'm going to the natural treatments and see if they can save, right? Do it the other way around. If you fail the natural treatments, then move into the pharmacological and take advantage of the best things that we are doing, because some of those things actually work and are good for you. It doesn't mean that there isn't a counterpart in the natural world that could do the same or better. There might be harder to find, and so you have to go to the pharmacological ones. But do it the other way around. Don't wait until the last moment to think, okay, now I'm going to look into nature and see if there is my last chance. Do it the other way around, and you probably see that there will be better results. Just for instance, just remind people that we have in our body one I don't know how to say it. We have like a nervous system. It's not a nervous system, but it's like a nervous system that goes in your entire body. That's called the endocannabinoid. I can't say it. Cannabidiol.
Endocannabinoid.
In a cannabidiol.
Endocannabinoid.
Thank you. System.
Endocannabinoids.
Why would we have that if we don't include anything that has cannabinoids on our body, right? Why would we have that?
Only system in your body for which you do not produce a chemical in your body. You have a receptor and you don't produce that chemical in your body. Why would you have that?
Right? It goes into every single part of your body, every single one. So probably we should be taking at least some kind of CBD or something similar to that to activate that system that we have in our body. It's there for a reason, right?
Yep.
So
I think it's a sign of intelligence design. And remember cows, Ricardo? Think about what most of human beings, for at least the modern past history, right, always fed livestock. We grew hemp. And we made paper out of it, and we fed it to our livestock. So what did our livestock have in it? What did our pigs and everything we ate had CBD, and it addressed the endocannabinoid system. It kept our immune systems up. It did all of this naturally in our natural ecosystem. Go ahead, boss.
Yeah, but then you had this guy, if I remember correctly, it's called J.P. Morgan, and he just patented plastic. So why use hemp when I have plastic to sell?
It's why they
So
made it illegal, to get it out of the fucking food supply.
yeah,
They want us poisoned. They want us sick. They want us easy to control. It's why the schools were made the way they were. The direct quote from Rockefeller was, "I want a nation of mindless workers. I do not want free thinkers." And we were set up that way from the get-go. And of course, it includes this. This system that is in us shows intelligent design to me. It's designed for a chemical outside my body. I have to get that chemical from outside my body. And when I feed my cows to produce the meat and take care of my life, guess what happens? I got that in my body. Why would they take that away from us if it wasn't intentional?
but the tool is always the same. It's fear. Because if you look at it's like you watching a horror movie, no matter how terrible it is, without sound. It's a comedy. It ceases to be a terror movie and it becomes a comedy. And in here, it's the same thing. It's advertisements that like they were in the 60s or 50s. I can't precise because I'm not American, but you have like a young man smoking a joint, driving a car, and they said he got home and killed his mother because he smoked a joint, right? And what happened to the knowledge that people have hundreds of years back then, knowing that that was a natural thing? It's from where you make your clothes. It can make it was used not from what I've learned in the how do you call the where you the pharmacies? The pharmacies had another name at the time until the late 1900s. But 90% of the products were a derivative, a product of cannabis.
Yep.
90% of them. Right?
Do you know why they call it marijuana? You hit on it with those commercials. Do you know why it's called marijuana? Marijuana is not cannabis.
Exactly. Tell me, because I
It's
read it, but I can't
it-
remember.
it's like a South American or Mexican or South American weed, right? That's often smoked when you don't have tobacco. It's like a backup tobacco, right? And it's a weed. It looks awful. So the dude who was doing the campaigns was looking around for a name that we got to make it sound awful, and he went with marijuana because he thought it was derivative, and it would give the image he was wanting people to have. It's a weed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know why Lucky Strike is called Lucky Strike, the tobacco brand?
I don't know. That was a good cigarette back before they got bought out. Why?
Because it's called a Lucky Strike because inside of every single pack there was one that was cannabis.
Oh, no shit.
Yes.
I did not know that.
One of the cigarettes inside it was
Damn.
cannabis, and that is why its name is Lucky Strike, because you have one in there in every single pack. That ended after this starting to, so they had to reformulate their brand and create a new product.
Wow.
So it's how easy it is to change the masses' mind through fear that overwhelms any natural reasoning. Because people knew perfectly well. They all smoked it when they were young. Either in those times, they all smoked it. And they never reminded themselves like, oh, I never killed my mother because I smoked a weed. This is stupid. It's exactly the same as you see this burger and this chips. You come here, we'll give you something, but you get this chip. Come and eat this chip. Is like they're talking to stupid people, to really, really dumb people. And unfortunately, fear makes that out of a human. It reduces your cognitive capacity and makes you submissive to whatever you're being told to do. And this has been repeated many times. And in case of drugs, it's a clear case of what's been happening all of this time is the fear. Don't take that. Don't do it. Right? So I hope the presentation from Jacqueline gave a new perspective and enlightened some of us that had a wrong idea about what some of these drugs are.
Yeah, they do them simple like that, like you say, and so stupid because it's about just talking to the subconscious, right? They're not going to try to convince you. They're not giving you data, right? They're going to make it stupid so that you just hear it. Even if you laugh at it at first, your subconscious has now absorbed it, and that's what they do because it's like casting a spell. They want to broadcast out this message, and they want you to hear it. So that now on, the society in mass has heard that, and that's why they're so simple and stupid. Is because they don't care about facts. They just want to get your subconscious programmed.
Yeah, but I would maybe foolishly, optimistically state that like Sarah said, this day of information, we're in the information age,
Yeah.
that the more things are brought to light and the more people who speak openly and honestly about things, and because information is literally at our fingertips, that at some point we have to cross the threshold where it's unavoidable for you to be able to do and access the information that you know that you're entitled to, the truth. And so if you don't know about the medications that you're taking, for instance, when I was a nurse, it terrified and over time actually ceased to surprise me how many people have no idea what medications they are taking. They would come to, I might receive them as a patient and they give me like this handful of bottles or a bag of bottles of medication. And they say, they have no idea. And when you bring them medication, well, what's this one for? So it's this continuous like effort to try to educate people to help them understand, this is what this one's for and you take it because of this. And you have a right to say you don't want to take it. You don't have to take it just because the doctor said you should or you have to. Like, and it was just it was a real eye opener for me actually when I was a new nurse and thinking, as a nurse, my job was to advocate for people. So to me, I took that to heart very deeply. And, the doctor prescribed a medication to this patient for this reason. And I'm a nurse. And so I understand the science and the medical side of it. And I appreciate that we're trying to help this person. But shouldn't we start at the beginning and explain to them how they arrived there in the first place? And also explain to them, you have lifestyle habits and you have things that you're doing that are counteracting the effectiveness of the medication you're taking in the first place. So I think that I somehow, even after all of the exposure to the abysmal state of people's education on medications and therapies and whatnot, people are so busy and they just rely on a doctor or a professional to tell them this is what you should do. That's one person's opinion, and it could be a widely accepted opinion within the medical field, but it's so important for people to take the time and to care for themselves and to love themselves enough, to find the reason to go get the education, go find out what it is that your body, your mind really needs. Because you can't rely on the complex, as you guys have been describing, because it's not set up and it's not personal and it's not suited to each individual. And even if you take away, the probability that there's some nefariousness there, that's just such a dangerous way to live your life, to accept, advice from someone that really has no idea who you are and what you really need. And it's up to every individual to go get the education. And there could be lots of people who are out there right now, and just to bring it specifically into the case of psilocybin, who are suffering with, coming to their nurse with armloads of medication saying, I take this, and I have no idea why. Well, maybe you don't need to take that shit anymore if you looked for alternative therapies. And so that is why I think it's important, especially with the mental health crisis that we have all across every nation, not just Canada, not just the United States, that people be given as much information as we can to holistically heal them, that they don't need to take medication, that is often like a road to nowhere. You will never stop feeling badly. You will never stop performing badly or, basically over time degrading to the point where you are so sick that there's almost no way to get out of that deep hole that you're in. And so,
That's it.
it's important for people to take control of their lives and go get the information. That's why I said at the very beginning, I have all of the citations and the links and everywhere that I gathered information, and I've been compiling these sources and links for a long, long time, just out of a habit, hobby, call it what you will, but there's resources out there for people who are suffering, and it's it's just like a click away. And I really, really am
Yes.
always the person that will encourage people to go do your research, to go read, because in some cases, and Sarah mentioning the epidemic of mental health, especially amongst people like our veterans, like it doesn't need to be that way. It's literally like one click away, and something,
Needless suffering.
yeah, you could open a door that changes everything for you and turns your life around. So
Yeah.
that that is really what I would like for people to take away from this.
It's why I'm here at the presentation. It's why I talk about my own experiences and let
Hmm.
people ask me about it. Like Ricardo said, even though mine are whatever advanced, because of what I was after. It's
Yeah.
still it's this healing. You talk to other people, you listen to the stories. It's this healing that can take place when you're taking a pharmaceutical that is designed, especially if we're talking psychological, or what Jung would even call them, probably more likely spiritual maladies, right?
Hmm.
And you're given a substance that is gonna make you not feel the way you were feeling. What's it gonna do? It's gonna dumb
It's
it
gonna make you
down.
feel
It's gonna
nothing.
numb it, right? It's gonna numb it. So you haven't fixed shit. You
No,
haven't fixed
Put a
a thing.
Band-Aid on it.
Right,
not
and
even a
what and the
Band-Aid.
doctor who is after good care and is sworn to good care, he should know this, right? And if he
Yeah,
has the
but that
knowledge.
doctor in it, I'm gonna have to speak up in this case, because even that doctor was educated under the system that was designed
Of course,
Yes.
I
in
know,
this way.
I know.
So, even people's best intentions is still a half-assed effort
They're
in that
they're they're
case.
they're all very good people. I mean, I
Yeah.
have to go to a doctor, you know what I'm saying? But
Hmm.
but I still, when I speak on it, I'm gonna speak strongly, because that way, at least anybody that hears me can't say they don't know, can't say they haven't heard, whether in
Sure.
whatever doctor or person it is.
Sure.
They can't say that I wasn't aware. This stuff can heal you in ways that nothing
Yeah.
else we know of can?
Like,
Wow.
people need
That's
to
news.
realize they need to realize that you are your own best advocate in the case of your health and the healthcare delivery that you receive. And
Yep,
and
yep.
so people learning and growing and understanding the alternative medicines that are available to them, you're the one that needs to speak up and say, I want that, I want to try that, or I'm interested in that, can you tell me about that? Force your healthcare team to basically go find out. Like, that's why I emphasize the importance of educating not only the professionals and the public, but all of the people who are going to be delivering care under the premise of healing using psilocybin. So that's what I have to say about that.
Yeah,
I
our
just
failure of a Go ahead. Our failure of a healthcare system is responsible, I do believe, for a lot of these advancements that we're seeing with like psilocybin and cannabis and things like that. Because, like Ricardo said, they go to the doctor first and they expect to be saved, and it doesn't work. And then they're going to holistic stuff because they have no other option. That's what I'm dealing with my migraine issue. That was when I first started looking into psilocybin, was for migraines. And like, I have a brother who is a veteran who has PTSD. I know he's done his research on psilocybin. These are things that should be available. Cannabis too for PTSD. I mean, that's a good thing. If that helps someone go another day, then that's what they need to do in the
Yeah.
moment.
Yeah.
Um,
Agreed.
and I, and I think that the failing healthcare system has helped to propel all these things into availability for all of us. So there's that. I mean,
Yeah.
everything has a purpose, right?
Yeah. You honestly, you just have to keep the faith that people, will will you just have to help people and encourage them to help themselves.
Most pharmaceuticals are some type of synthetic. Um, it's supposed to mimic something
Yeah.
that is
That's
holistic, like
natural.
some
Yeah.
type of herb or something like.
Yep.
But they just, like we said, they need to slap a brand on it. They need to be able to tax it and sell it and
Yeah.
hike the price up. And you could just go out in your yard and there's dandelions everywhere.
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone's looked into dandelions, but good Lord. I mean,
You can get some
Yeah.
cervical cancer eased with that. I mean, I'm just joking, but my point is, it's like, right? There's like stuff out there that seriously, look, guys, I put it simply like this. I think we were put here in a world that provides everything for us, and that is a serious problem if you want to run a capitalistic venture, right? And that's simply what we're up against.
I'm not trying to be the public enemy here. I just want to state that the people are the ones to blame, not the system themselves. Because, for instance, how many of you have tried to tell? I tried to tell many people, saying, "Have you read what's in that when you bought it at the supermarket? Read it." It's like you saying that you suddenly became a small green man with big eyes and talking nonsense. What do you mean read it? Yeah, did you read what's in it? Do you know what you're eating? Oh, it tastes good. Yeah, do you know what you're eating? I don't care. And that's the problem. So it's small steps. How can we expect that people start looking into these things that go into deep healing and consciousness itself if people don't even care what they put in their bodies as they're eating? Look at what is in the label, see what you're eating, learn the names, learn the chemical names that comes into the packages, learn what's the effects of that has into your body. It's a simple step. Just turn the goddamn package the other way around and read what's in it. And if you wouldn't know what it is, look it in your phone. You have a phone, you just type it in and see exactly what it is. So it's easy steps, and if you start taking care of yourself, you can progress and go into deeper and deeper matters.
Do we want to have to stress ourselves with the lowest common denominator? People have always been stupid and insane. Now, to bring it back to Jacqueline, there was one point, this is a Graham Hancock book that I was going to make when you were talking about archaeological evidence. And in this book, Supernatural, I forget what he renamed it when he released it here in the U.S. I have that copy in the garage. But what he does is he takes the work of another individual. Go to Graham Hancock's webpage for these names. I don't recall them right now. Another individual's work. There you go. Okay, see, who looked at cave paintings around the world, right? And he started looking at the entopic phenomenon of psilocybin users, right? And started getting data on all that, and started looking at the cave paintings and started going, hey, listen, come here. These pictures that all these people in psilocybin are painting, they look just like this shit over here. You know what I'm going. And so he correlated that 30,000 years ago, to bring it home to Ricardo, 30,000 years ago, I've got cave paintings in France where I know they were using psilocybin. I know they were getting all these effects we were talking about because I read all this and looked at all the data in this thick ass book that told me that that's cave paintings around the world. Now, for 30,000 years, we have been aware of this. We might be rediscovering it because pharmacological companies and industrialists wanted to shut us the fuck down and didn't want us to know what we've known for 30 years. I can't help it if somebody doesn't know what's in their cornflakes, right? I can't help but preach and try to move forward. Folks, this has been awakening our consciousness and changing us for years. They want purposefully for you to not know that. And if you don't know what's in your cornflakes, keep eating them. They're good too. I have them sometimes. The human body can take a lot.
I just want to say that you look beautifully with the book in your hand. The way you were waving the book. It's the holy book in the hand of the shaman.
I've read a lot of these and they're thick. I'm proud of it. There's a lot of footnotes in this one are insane.
Yes. So, Sarah, would you like to tell the lovely viewers where they can find Universe Unveiled?
I sure will, but first I want to say that was a lovely presentation.
Well, thank you so much, darling.
And I did not know very much about psilocybin
Well, now you do.
prior to this presentation, so that was very informative. I'm kind of the last to know on the psilocybin. When they first said that psilocybin could heal things like PTSD, I was like,
Like
what?
what?
We're on the legalized cannabis train, and then they're like, psilocybin can help with PTSD. And I was like, yeah, right.
There are so many unpublished
You won't believe
studies
the
coming
feeling
out right
next
now.
morning. You won't
Well, they're
believe.
about to come out. So
Regardless of the experience, forget all that part. The next morning, when you're done and you wake up, sir, you won't believe the feeling. You will be like fucking 4 years old in your mind again, just feeling it, just here.
Here's the thing. Okay, remember in elementary school, and the teacher would be up there writing with the chalk all day long, and then she wiped the board, but you could still see leftovers of what she said. Psilocybin is like the soap and water application to
Oh.
the board. And so the next day you're like, I am fresh. Everything is a wash and everything can be redone in a new way.
Yeah.
That's the way I can summarize what Jason's trying to explain.
It is.
So
And
many people
I
need that.
use that analogy all the time, guys. And
Yeah.
when you're invested in changing your life for the better and trying to change you, right? I mean, look at me. I showed a picture of y'all in Discord of me, whatever, when I was young, but just look at me a while ago, right? Not only just my long hair and everything, but who I am, the confidence I have, the things I know, right? All of these are changes and growths that people are supposed to be after. If you're in the business of changing and growing, right? No matter where you are, no matter how low down in that trauma and that bullshit you are, I was there too, right?
Mhm.
I got out of there naturally and spiritually through 12 steps. But afterwards, and when I was looking to really start making some serious deep work, I found this. And this, guys, it's a miracle tool because it
Yeah.
makes all that possible because of this feeling, Sarah. You wake up and you're like, well, damn, why was I doing
Blank
that?
slate.
That's stupid. Why was I scared of what somebody thought? That's stupid. And you're just walking around with this new sort of cleanness,
For sure.
like elementary school before the world taught you all this crap.
I've had multiple experiences with psilocybin at different stages in my life, and I would say um the last 2 years have made a profound difference to me. I can't I mean, it's very deeply personal situation. I could not have made the changes within myself and also in my perceptions of the reality that I live in uh, without that very, very deep and fundamental tool. And that's what it has been for me, a tool.
Yeah.
So,
I
yeah,
concur.
that's my personal attestation. Yeah.
The
So, Sarah, thank
testimony.
you. My testimony. I'm laying it down.
Preach.
I don't need a book.
Don't need a book. Got my experience, got my wisdom.
That's
That's
right.
exactly what she's been putting on display. And I couldn't thank you enough, not only for us, and because I do like the topic, even if, I was crazy out there in the creek, trying to connect with natives and hooting and hollering while I was brewing tea from mushrooms I just
Hooting and
harvested off
hollering.
cow shit. It played its role and it got
For
me where
sure.
I was because of these basic facts that are available to every human that we've all been talking about here. And so thank you for bringing that out. And to anyone, looking for either advice or guidance on these things, reach out to us. It's a tool, guys. And that's it. I'm done. I really want to stress to people that the narrative blindness and the stigma that we might have been forced to be under, this is one of the many other topics, along with history and everything else we talk about, that you really need to get past. And if you're looking for something that could help and you haven't found answers elsewhere, go check this out because it's there and it can do things. Thank
For
you
sure.
for presenting this.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Yeah,
Now,
Sarah. Yes.
I will tell everyone where they can find us.
Where can they find us? Where can the people find the UU twins?
Well, we're everywhere. We're
Oh.
like the good Lord. We are on X, YouTube, Spotify, Instagram, Facebook, Spreaker, you name it. We
Rumble.
are probably there. Rumble, that one too.
That one too.
And I think that's got us covered.
Yes, and we want the people to remember that we put out a new full episode every second Wednesday, and we always drop a fun little news segment every Sunday at 11:11 on YouTube and X.
And we want to thank Ricardo and Jason, shaman and philosopher, for joining us today on our UU Cruise Sesh. You guys want to add anything?
Remind the people when they can watch your regularly scheduled shows, Ricardo.
Yes.
So the only fixed shows among the other 25 we do a week are are on Fridays, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, with Roundtable Chronicles that we do with Vincent Barrows and Rick Osmond, and at Sundays at 7 p.m. Eastern also, unless like last Sunday that we couldn't do it because I was on another show, but it we'll try to avoid that. So it will be always at Sundays at 7 p.m. Eastern. And we'll do several lives during the week. So when these come out, we're already done, for instance, one live at noon, which it's not our usual hour, but that's the hour that our guest can because it's on a different continent. So it will be live at noon for you can find on the Institute for Natural Philosophy YouTube page, on Jason's Shaman 711 and myself, Ricard Calvary 1 on X will be also there in our feeds, and probably on Facebook because Jason does gracious us to post there too. So.
I don't really have any promos. I'm just going to say I'm glad to be here with you two. Thank you very much for continuing, as we were talking about before we started recording, not only the continuity of the productions that you're putting out, especially with Ed Barnhart, it'll be out by the time this gets out, but with the way that this is growing and progressing, as a community at the Institute of Natural Philosophy, but also just your show, what you ladies are doing, and then what we're doing over here. I'm just pleased as punch to be a part of it and can't wait for the next one.
Well, I'll cheers to that. Cheers to that.
And
Thank
if
you.
you've
We're just
seen
here to
this
learn.
episode and haven't seen Ed Barnhart, go to the channel because
Barnhart,
that's the episode. It will be there. Go and watch it.
Yeah, we got all kinds of interesting things coming up, guys. Just find us at the Institute homepage, my ex. We're going to be doing Mars Disclosure. We're taking on podcasting and lives like it's a freaking disease or something, and we're going to eradicate it by doing all we can. So we're easy to find,
And maybe, just maybe, in the future, you might be able to catch the UU twins doing a live here and there. We'll see.
Not maybe. We're getting you there. We were
Lives
there
are coming
today.
soon.
We just didn't tell you. All right, everybody. Now, reveal the chat.
I know how we're going to do it. We're going to interview them individually on our show live. So we put them live, alone and defenseless against.
You're going to make us walk the plank. That's basically what you just said.
No, we interview them together live. We interview them together live when they're ready. That's what we do. We let them be together as a unit. And
you can't separate us. We're twins.
Look,
Right.
you and I are going to be sitting here fucking with each other. And, they don't need but that. They need both of them so their energy can work. Because look, I was nervous. You guys saw me in my first interview with you on recorded, let alone,
It was cute. It was cute.
I was totally live too. I was like, watch me with Jeff up north, it was like, people are watching, I mean, but once you do it once, you're like, oh,
Yeah.
that's
You
like
pop
so
that
much,
cherry,
so much fucking easier,
Well, it helps that you're
And
such a natural.
instead of edit, I just make a joke, okay, I get it,
You can actually say, oops, I fucked up.
That's all you got to do is go, what the fuck
And
was
no
that?
one cares.
Right. That's it. But y'all, I please really do it with us soon, and like come in, like say we can frame it. We're like, oh, I just got a message. We've got, whatever, pan it. And where y'all come in for 5 minutes, or 10 minutes and plug Ed Barnhart.
Oh my God, look who's here.
Right. Exactly.
Who's that at the door?
Whenever we can, like when we're finishing one of our lives, let's just work in a Mr. Rogers neighborhood and, and that'll get you used to it, come in and do 5 minutes and we'll carry it, but then you'll get that experience. And once you do it, you're like, all right, come on, let's go,
All right, Sarah. I thank you all very graciously for being here with me and listening to my presentation. And you know what that means. If we're at the end of the rotation, then we're back to Jason.
Oh.
And it's 4 more
No, it
months before
starts
you hear
over.
from me.
Starts over now.
It starts over, Jason. I don't know. Sarah and I are going to come up with something good for our next UU crew.
Okay.
So we'll keep you posted.
Yeah. I mean, just give me a heads up when because I'm about to start getting some new video in. I've got quite a few.
Well,
I think start doing.
I think I have some ideas. We'll talk about something hot and fresh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to talk to all of y'all about that today anyways.
Okay.
About where we want to go in the direction of UU crew.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I don't give a shit. Just give me a 2 days heads up if you need me to present. Other than that, I'm for whatever you want to do.
All right.
Solid.
Solid. Anyway, if you have watched all the way to the end, we thank you very much for joining us for another episode of the UU Crew. We thank the boys
Indeed.
for hanging out with us. And as always, I thank my beloved Dolly for not only being my twin and my dear, dear friend, but also the one who works all the magic and made this episode look beautiful. So thank you very much.
I forgot we were still rolling.
My pleasure.
Yes. Well, everyone, have a wonderful week. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you again. Bye.
Bye.